Jeremy,
Hello, dudes.
what's going on, man?
You know, not a whole lot. What's going on with you guys?
I'm good, man. It's good to meet you in person. You and I actually met at the MF Doom event. You were there, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know if you remember, but I had asked you where you got all your Muni gear from.
yeah,
Yeah,
different
so
places. Not
yeah,
not the same answer twice. That's not
right,
the kind of stuff you get all in one lump gift, you know?
right. So I've met you before. My brother Dominic here, who's the co-host. You guys haven't met.
Nice to meet
We
you, Dominic.
we haven't met, but with that mustache and me being a firefighter, I mean, I feel like we must have met in a past life. You know what I mean? Because that's a healthy stash right there for sure.
Hey, let me stand next to you guys when there's firefighters around and nobody can pick me out of the crowd. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a strong one there. Hey, great having you on. We're super excited, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So you live in North Beach right now?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in North Beach do you live? I mean, we grew up in North Beach. My old man's from Sicily. I was a member of the Salesians Boys and Girls Club, and our families owned some restaurants in Fisherman's Wharf and North Beach. So that was like one of the things that really kind of stuck out to me on having why we wanted to have you on the show.
I live on Union between Stockton and Grant, and I've had this apartment for almost 20 years. But I moved to San Francisco in '94 to go to the Art Institute down on Chestnut. Uh, so this neighborhood was kind of my whole introduction to the city. As a student living on student loans, I moved here from New York. So I was like 3,000 miles from where I grew up, and the city in general was pretty intimidating at first. And this neighborhood wasn't, it was not super affordable for a student, but Golden Boy and Mario's and a lot of my favorite things, Trieste, obviously, from when I was a student, are still here, fortunately. And this neighborhood, I mean, you guys would know more than I do. Like, it has kind of a timeless thing going on where you don't really know if it's 1950, 1980, or 2010, like it. And I think that's probably why I've stayed so long. I often think if I lived somewhere else in San Francisco, I probably would have moved a long time ago.
Yeah, it definitely has that. There's different pockets. There's folks that have been there forever. There's people that just got to San Francisco, and there's a lot of old school like places there. A lot of people, you know, had places, started new places, but there's a lot of history there. So it's a really cool area. So you live there. You moved there in '01 around.
No, I moved here in '94.
Oh, '94.
I got my apartment in the early 2000s, and I've had it. I mean, I can't even believe I still live. I mean, I also picked the most expensive 25 years in the history of the city since the gold rush. And I certainly didn't see that coming when I moved out here to try to draw pictures for a living. But it is funny, and I think about it all the time. Like, I just picked such a strange time in human history to move out here, like it went from being when I moved here in the '90s, it was much more affordable than going to art school in New York or Boston, which is part of the reason it was really approachable at that time. And to think it went from that to being the most expensive city in the country, like it had a real fucking massive surge of funds for the last, for as long as I've been here.
For sure. I know I read somewhere that earlier in your career you ran like a barter system and you would trade, some of your artwork for different things, which seems to fit the North Beach style so much, right? You walk around, there's people always trading stuff, like you said, that timeless feel. Um, is that, kind of, if you could expand on that, like how it was early in your career and some of those
I still
trades.
do that, to be honest. I don't do it around the rest of the city as much, but I still do it in this neighborhood just because I'm neighborly. But it started with that bar Grant and Green.
Yeah, we know that part.
I got invited to be in a group show at 111 Minna in early 2000s that was about where you live, and they had each person paint something different based on your neighborhood. And I painted something that's like this. It looks like a giant boat under the building, and there's all those like the old ship saloon and all that shit where there's a lot of structures on this side of the city that are built up on top of old boats that were dragged up on the shore and used architecturally. And so the painting is kind of about that. And I put a big price tag on it because I didn't want anybody to buy it. And my thought was like, I had just moved over here and I was like, oh, I'll put it up on the side of a building for people to enjoy or whatever. So I went to Grant and Green. I asked the guy, I was like, hey, can I stick this thing on the side of your building? And John, the owner, who's way cool, was like, he's like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I don't want anything. I just want to stick it on your building. And he was like, nah. He's like, I don't trust it. He's like, you're gonna come back at some point and be like, what do you want? And I'm like, nah, I don't care. He's like, no, you gotta tell me what I was like, all right, how about this? I was like, how about I never pay to drink in your bar? And I was like, and I don't drink a lot. At that age, I barely drank at all. And he was like, all right, cool. So we took a copy of my driver's license and crossed out all the important shit and blew it up. And he had it hanging behind the bar for years where it said, this person does not pay to drink here. And like I said, at that age, really, I almost never went there. But my dad, who's no longer with us, it was his favorite thing to do when he came to town, is he would just sit in that corner pocket at Grant and Green with the windows open, and anybody that gave him 20 seconds of their time, he'd be like, my son doesn't pay to drink here, glug glug, like it was something he was really proud of. And that's kind of how it started. I think Tony's or Golden Boy was next, and like then it got to a point in later years where it kind of got out that I do stuff for trade. So I'll trade with a lot of people in North Beach for things like that. And part of it's that you can't, it's cool to get free food. And I'm not dumb. I save a lot of money, but there's also a relationship you gain with your neighbors doing something like that, I just move in, you hire me to do your logo or whatever. We're friendly. But if you agree to feed me in exchange for my time, then now we're friends. And that's something that I think in the city these days might be a little harder to establish. And I also think, it is something more unique to this side of the city. And it's something I really love about this area is that relationship I have with my neighbors.
Do you still have that lifetime pass at the bar?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
I don't go
awesome.
there very often, but I'm sure if John was there, he would honor it. They've since remodeled it. The photocopies no longer, I mean, fuck man, this is more than 15 years ago. The
Yeah.
photocopy's no longer behind the bar, but he's a stand-up dude. The painting's still on the side of the building. I'm sure if I nudged him, he would honor it. But I have free drinks at a lot of bars in the neighborhood for life, free pizza for life, and most of the good pizza spots in the neighborhood. Like I treat my neighbors really well and continue to do free artwork and contribute to their businesses, as well as do a lot of stuff, fundraisers and events in this neighborhood where I try to bring people over here. That's more in the last couple of years, obviously, just because things have been so fucked up in this area and all over the world. I don't mean to say North Beach is
Right.
uniquely fucked up, but for an area that's such a high concentration of bars and restaurants, with no tourism or little to no tourism in the city, you really do feel it over on this side of the city. I mean, that walk from Fisherman's Wharf through North Beach to Chinatown is like, it's on that list of stuff people do when they come to the United States, like the Grand Canyon and Disneyland. And unfortunately, right now, there's very few people coming on vacation to take that walk from the wharf to Chinatown right now. It's just not in the greatest moment in its history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to I ate so much at Golden Boy. I used to, on the refrigerator they had pictures of all the people that ate there. There's a picture of me on there from when I was 7 years old. I mean, I'm 32 now, but my dad's best friend owned Michelangelo Cafe, and I worked there. I worked at Piazza Pellegrini. I worked at Pasta Pomodoro when it was right there on Union Street.
Yeah,
I worked at Palermo Deli #1. I know there's a #2 that's
the one
open
next
now.
to Tony's with
Yeah,
Mario and Frankie, and yeah, I went in there a lot.
yeah. I
Like just
mean,
right when I first moved over to the neighborhood, I ate there quite a bit.
yeah, dude. I mean, it's just North Beach is so important to me and my brother, and it's pretty cool your story. So when you were living in New York and kind of growing up, how did you know that you were into art and that was something that you wanted to do professionally?
I wasn't good at anything else. I like when you're in school, I got good grades in art and good grades in English, like creative writing and stuff like that, but I wasn't really good at anything else. Uh, Maybe gym class, depending on the sport, but yeah, it was a short list of shit. I didn't have a lot of choice, and I did good in art from the time I was a little kid. My mother's father was Italian, and his father came over from Italy, from Sorrento, to be a tailor in New York City. for Teddy Roosevelt, and he made the suit that he was married in and the suit that he was buried in. And my grandfather was a carpenter, so like the Italian side of my family, they all made their living with their hands. And I remember being wicked. And my dad and his dad made their living. You know, my dad worked in like in the steel industry, and my grandfather was a sales dude. So they made their money with their mouth, and my mom's side of the family made their money with their hands. And I always just figured I would like, you know, I just from the time I was a little kid, I just wanted they had workshops in their house and shit, you know? Like the idea that you get to just stay home and like make a living making something, it always been really like from the time I was wicked young, it's just kind of what I wanted to do.
When did you start, I mean, were you always from a young age just constantly creating, making a lot of different artwork and just kind of or when did that kind of turn on where you're like, all right, this is, I'm doing this. This is what I enjoy.
I was always into it and I was always pretty good at it, but I don't think it was till high school that I started to take it way more serious. I grew up skateboarding and I started really young. The oldest skate park in New York State is like a few blocks from my house. Growing up, and I don't know. I think skateboarding is really visually art driven, like the graphics on the boards and the T-shirts and all that. So I got really into that as a teenager. Like I worked in a skate shop, and they get gnarly winters back there. So I would just sit there and try to redraw stuff I liked, and that's when I got more into it and realized that's probably something I. And then when they're like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I was like, "Oh, I want to draw graphics on skateboards," and they're just like, "That's a stupid thing to do. Don't do that." Uh, I mean, in New York in the '80s and '90s, that didn't exist. It's a good, and that's part of the reason I came out here is I knew that was something here that was like, it was an actual job. People were doing it.
Yeah.
And did you know, like, was there like a piece that you did where you were like, fuck, I can get paid for this? Like, I mean, we talked to a lot of athletes and business owners, and they talk about having that aha moment. Was there like a piece that you made and you were like, whoa, like I'm really doing this and I can get paid for it?
Uh, I don't know, man. I'm not like I wasn't so good at this that it was obvious to anybody else I was ever gonna make a living doing it. Like I said, it was the best. It was one of the things I was good at comparatively, but I wasn't so good at it that anybody else in my family or my circle of friends thought this guy's going to do this for a living. If you look at my work when I first moved here compared to like when people started like noticing it, I was terrible and I worked really, 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 really hard to get better at it. So by the time I had like a aha moment, I was probably 5 years into it, and like I'd been out of college for a while and like worked full time at a job in commercial printing, like in the skateboard industry. And so I kind of like I got better at it while I worked there. I like, it was almost like grad school. I looked closely at the art that we were producing for other people, and I just kind of trained myself to get better at it and make it look more like that. But if I had an aha moment, it was probably late '90s, early 2000s when I started getting like t-shirt jobs where like I saw someone wearing my shirt, or like skateboard jobs where I saw kids like skating boards with my graphics. Like I think that's when it kicked in. I might actually pull it off. I had had art related jobs for a very long time, but never thought like I wouldn't have like a full-time job and I would just make art all day.
As an artist, have you found it tough, you know, putting a monetary price on your art? Obviously, you mentioned, trading for, the connection with the community. And obviously, a lot of artists are very humble and they create, out of love for their creation. And so it's hard to go, I think this is worth this, or I should get this for it. Have you found that to be something for you that, has been a challenge in being in the art world is connecting, creation you love with a monetary, kind of a what the price is and all that.
You know, Dom, I think if I had started this career anywhere else at any other time, I might have. But because I got out of school right during the first dot-com boom, you know, it was either sell it for a decent buck or move away because, it was pretty easy to see real early on. If I wanted to stay here, I had to make money at this. There was no like, you know what I mean? Like San Francisco just wasn't cheap by the time I got out of college.
Yeah.
And you could see it on the wall. And it's a two-way street. a lot of these crazy young tech dudes, especially the first wave, spent their money real irresponsible and like bought a bunch of art. And so I was able to sell paintings. As far as what price tag to put on there, I was pretty humble compared to a lot of my friends, but it also helped me sell it, like, um, but I do think it may have, directly to the point of your question, it might have been a lot harder to figure out how much to charge if it wasn't for the fact that everywhere I looked, the city I loved, and had just gotten a college degree and a job. So technically, I was like a taxpayer now. Was I could just watch it right around me as I hit my early 20s, just getting crazy expensive. And
Yeah.
even then, like before a lot of my friends were settling down and getting married and having kids, a lot of my friends were already fleeing to the suburbs and the East Bay and areas that were much less expensive. And no offense to those areas, that's just never where I imagined myself living. So for me, it was like, I'm either going to sell it for a comparatively, decent amount of money, or I'm going to have to go live somewhere else. Um,
Yeah.
so the city itself sort of shaped both how much I was charging for it, and especially early on, who was buying it, who could afford it. And it was tech guys and weed guys, especially early on. Because they're the dudes that made money that was like they spent it irresponsibly, you know what I mean?
Very, very similar to another industry that's kind of emerging right now, with the art world, which we'll dive in later. But the NFT space and crypto, people are buying that stuff like crazy because they have this disposable crypto money. And if you have 2,000 Ethereum that you bought for near to nothing, 2 Ethereum for a artwork is nothing.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So, I've heard you talk a lot about San Francisco. Obviously, the city has gone through a lot of changes in the last 30 years. I grew up skateboarding as well. I skated down at Pier 7 a lot, hung out a lot at FTC, and I know that area very well. And we it sounds like we have a pretty similar upbringing aside from the artwork because I suck at art. But what are your thoughts on how the city has changed, and what do you think is going to happen in the future? I feel like a lot of people are kind of you hear a lot of back and forth about what people think about San Francisco. I'm curious to hear kind of what you think.
Well, I think that in order to stay here right now, for me, I have to remain as positive as possible about it. I think look, what was it, 2010 or 2011? U.S. News, or one of these big fucking newspapers, was like North Beach specifically is in like the top 10 neighborhoods in the United States. Like the city was so desirable. It was like this pinnacle of magic in the United States. And now, these articles and these Fox News outlets are writing these really dramatic pieces about our city and being super negative. So I know it's going through another transition. Something about being only 7 miles across, like something this dramatic, you really feel it. Like, bro, 1 in every 4 people moved away. Like, what the fuck? It's like a mass exodus.
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's hard
crazy.
because a lot of those people, I'm 47. Most of my friends are bouncing, and like if they hadn't already in the last few years, the last 2 years really did it to them. And for a number of reasons, you know what I mean? And I just, at this stage in my life, I'm going to remain as positive as possible and do whatever I can to help support a city that absolutely supported me. I wouldn't have this job if I hadn't moved here, I don't think. And like, I just think you've got to remain positive. It sounds almost cliche, like I'm answering the question in a Disney movie, but it is way too easy right now to sit around at a bar and bitch about the fucking 100 things that aren't as cool as they were even 5 years ago. It's just that isn't going to help shit. And I will say that as we lost 1 in 4 people, 25% of the citizens of San Francisco went elsewhere for a number of reasons. Work at home, couldn't afford it, lost their job, had a family. It's a big ass list. But I will say that before the pandemic, how many times were you guys both out at something, just listening to people shit all over the city? Be like, it sucks. They ruined it. It's this guy's fault. It's their, you know what I mean? Like, it used to be so much better. Man, I used to go there back when it was still like, man, shut the fuck up. It isn't fixing anything. And it's not that it's not true. And it's not that those issues don't need to be resolved and we don't need to But man, it got to be pretty hard every time you left the house to go out to enjoy yourself with your friends. Either your friends or the people behind you are yammering on about how fucked up things are. So I will say, as we lost 25%, I like to hope that the people that stayed really love it here and really want to be here and really want to work towards making it the city it's always been, you know? It's in a fucking weird spot because we became the most expensive city in the country almost overnight. You know how long it took Manhattan to be the most expensive city? I don't know.
A
But
lot of a
like
lot of a lot of dark years in Manhattan
saying, like
before the
Manhattan
light
in the
came.
70s, you see all those movies like Warriors and shit.
Yeah.
Like, and look at it now. Times Square is like Disneyland. So we're in a slump for sure. And I don't say that to be a downer or to be bitching about it, because I'm not. You have to live here during the golden years to recognize the crappy years. And I know both the potential and where we're at. And I hate to sound like a broken record or cliche, but we've all got to kind of work together to be more positive, because if everyone's attitude is just hyper focused on the negative, it's going to make it a hell of a lot more miserable to be here until it improves.
Yeah, I had a moment, I'm sure growing up in San Francisco, they tell you that the ocean in San Francisco will kill you immediately if you go inside. You step foot inside. So we grew
At
up
Ocean Beach, he means at
yeah,
Ocean Beach.
at Ocean Beach because of the currents, the sharks, and all that stuff. Maybe they just told us that, So we lived close to the beach and I never surfed. Moved to SoCal, started surfing. Finally surfed in San Francisco for the first time. I joke around that I'll lose all credibility, right? Because surfing in San Francisco, they're like, all right, he's out, he's out. But I was out there and I look back and the city's just amazing from Ocean Beach. When you're in the ocean, you got, the Golden Gate Bridge, you can see the peak of Coit Tower and all the whole city, and you're just like, wow, this is a beautiful city, amazing. So 100%, you got to look at the positive, and it's still San Francisco. There's still, so many of the great things that made it, the top spot. So that positivity, I think that's right on target for sure.
We need more of that.
And I think it's also, there's a lot of hate towards tech and how dramatically it affected the city. And especially from a lot of my friends that are born and raised here, because it's not something you've got to vote on, or, it just happened. But I, as someone who's not born and raised here, it's a crazy thing for me to have lived here next to it and just watch it change the fucking whole world.
The change
Yeah.
of
Whether I'm stoked
skyline.
on it or whether I'm not stoked on it, I'm proud of the fact that it was born here.
Yeah.
Like Atari is from here, Apple is from here. It's like the amount of clever, like forward thinking human beings that change the face of the planet while enjoying the same air that we do, and the views and like the fog and the whole kit. Like, it's a very, very, very crazy progressive place. And again, you might not be stoked on tech. I'm not. I'm almost 50. But you got to be proud of the fact that it was born in your backyard by brilliant motherfuckers that were, enjoying the same fog we were at 5 o'clock. Like, that's heavy.
Yeah. No, for sure. Absolutely.
So, you mentioned earlier that you were doing some work in skateboarding and that you worked with some companies out here. Can you expand a little bit on some of the brands that you work with in San Francisco? I was looking at your Instagram. I saw you did some work with, Real, New Balance, a couple of other brands. But, someone who loves skateboard, was definitely interested to ask you some questions on that.
When I got out of college, my degree was in screen printing because I knew it was something I could get a job. My dad was like, "You're gonna go to fucking art school. Whatever the fuck you do something that actually has like a real job after it." And I started screen printing in high school, and it was I'd literally been out of school for a month or two, and a buddy of mine got me a great job working in the print shop that's owned by the same people that own Thrasher and Deluxe, which is like Real, Spitfire,
Yeah.
Thunder, Crooked, all that stuff. And a company called Think Skateboards, which is no longer around, but it was part of the same brand, well, the same umbrella of companies. And it was a dream job. I got to oversee the printing of all the boards when they were still actually printing directly on them, and the stickers and T-shirts and all that stuff. So it's something I had professional experience in, but a personal passion for. And like I said earlier, it was also kind of like grad school. The guys doing illustration for those companies at that time were some of the best in the world still. To this day, some of them are unrivaled. So I was really learning from the best. And Yeah, I got as I started transitioned out of the print shop, they brought me over into the art department at Think. I worked there for a handful of years, and that was literally the last full time job I had. Through that, I kind of built up enough of a name for myself that I was getting half my opportunities in art galleries and museums and situations like that, and the other half my opportunities were like commercial illustrations and commercial drawing jobs, both in the skateboard industry and out. And I really like that balance. I went to the Art Institute, which is like the oldest or was the oldest art school in California, and one of the only fine arts institutions where it's kind of like they preach art for art's sake. And so I like to do gallery and museum stuff, but I also really like to do commercial illustration. And I think a lot of that is my background in the skateboard industry. Like I just that's kind of how I got my whole start as an artist professionally. And part of the whole reason I moved out here. I mean, when I was 19, I was still skateboarding every day. And in the 90s, San Francisco was unquestionably the skateboard capital of the world. Not just because of the terrain and the hills, but like Thrasher is from here and Independent, and Deluxe, and Spitfire, and like all these things that, as a teenager on the East Coast, made this place seem just like a fantasy land for skateboarding. Everything was downhill. So yeah, I just hit the perfect window. Got this degree in something, had no idea what I was going to do with it, and the next thing you know, I was working in the skateboard industry, and that led from one thing to the other, and kind of how I got to where I am now.
It's funny you brought up Apple and these forward thinking companies, and I think the same could be said about skateboarding.
Yeah,
And it's still true to this day. I mean, San Francisco is so sick when it comes to skateboarding. I mean, so many great brands and individuals who run brands in different. I mean, you look at Girl and Lakai. I mean, those are all San Francisco guys. Mike Carroll, and those teams of guys. I just think like again another instance where like you had greatness in this city. So it's just cool that you think of it that way.
yeah. And I think like I said, it was the skateboard capital in the '90s. It still is. I mean, like Thrasher's the only fucking magazine getting printed, and it's in the same spot that it's been for fucking 40 years. Like they'll always be the sport is will have ups and downs, and different people affect it in different ways. But I think it could be said that on any given year, San Francisco is still either the most important city in skateboarding or one of the. And it's just a huge part of what drew me out here. I don't skateboard anymore on a regular basis, obviously. And like, I'm just proud to be able to contribute to something that played such a big role in my life when I was a young man. And I do think it's something that, like, slowly, I think the whole world is starting to realize there's this like connection to this city and that sport. And a lot of it is the fucking seven massive mountains that are jammed in this fucking city limits.
Was skateboarding and that kind of was that where you were introduced to some of the musical artists that you work with? I saw that you did, I think, an album cover for Aesop Rock. And was that through skating and that you got introduced to them, or was that a different kind of a avenue?
No, that's something I mean, I was born in New York the same year as hip hop, more or less, like 3 hours north. That's really the only music I've ever listened to. Like, not to sound very narrow minded, but I don't really listen to a lot of other stuff. Uh, and so that was a huge part of coming here in the '90s. There had been some things on the West, like Too Short, and some things from the Bay Area that we knew about on the East Coast, but particularly that summer that I moved out here, Hieroglyphics and the Hobo Junction had this big battle on the radio that was like super historic. Like the Bay Area sound and like underground hip hop sound, not just like hip hop in general, but like Hieroglyphics, Dell, Hobo Junction, that guy Saphir, like there was just a lot of stuff that was like sort of getting recognized all over the world. So much so that I knew about it on the East Coast and like knew that the Bay Area and San Francisco had this like underground hip hop thing that was very unique. LA did too, like, but it just that was really attractive to me in those years. And also something I was proud to tell my friends, like when I go back and be like, yo, I saw this dude or this show or whatever. Like it was even on the East Coast, like Souls of Mischief and Hieroglyphics and Dell and all that shit was getting a lot of respect. And so it was just one more facet of the Bay Area at that time when I moved here that was really attractive. But
And
a
when
lot
you
of that has led me to work with guys like Aesop and Atmosphere and Action Bronson. And I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of rappers because outside of art and skateboarding, it's one of my other like something I've always kind of studied as just a fan.
Did when you did that album cover for them, was it like what was the process like for that? Was it like a hey, you just get, we're looking for you to just run wild and create something, or were they kind of like giving you some like, hey, we'd really like to see something like this, or giving a couple ideas, something like this on the album? What was that like working with Aesop?
I'll say with Aesop and all musicians that I've worked with, specifically with Aesop, he and I became good friends. He moved here in 2007. He got married, or 2006. And I was a huge fan. I'd seen him every time that he'd ever performed in the Bay Area. Like, I had followed his music from his first album on through until the one he put out a few weeks ago. And somebody let his wife know, or his wife knew my art, or somehow his wife was like, yo, this one dude is like your biggest fan ever. And that's kind of how we got introduced. And we just built we had a lot in common. We had friends in common. Like, we just built he also didn't know anybody here, which helped. He had just moved out here and gotten married, and like didn't know any, like, I showed him around the city, took him to dope places to eat. Like,
You had
I
that
was
free
kind of like,
drinking pass.
he doesn't drink, but
Oh, okay.
I took him everywhere and connected him to as many people as I could. And he had also grown up being into skateboarding, but with him, it was cool because, unlike, usually musicians are like, here, listen to the music and make something. That's the
Yeah.
fun part about doing music, is like, you get to listen to it, think of what you'd imagine it looks like, the way it sounds, and draw something. With Aesop, it was different because I got to like sit in while he was working on the album and sort of understand what some of the songs were about and where he was at in his life when he wrote it. And I got to play kazoo. There's like a hidden track at the end of the album that I played kazoo on it. And when he played it live, I got to fucking blow kazoo at the Fillmore, like, he let me come out and play on stage and shit. So it was more of it still is. I like talk to him all the time. It's more of a friendship than just like somebody I looked up to.
For
One of
hire.
those ones that, like, when I first started going to see him play live, I was so into him and all the guys on his record label at that time. There was a record label out of New York called Def Jux, and I was just a big ass fan. And if I had ever imagined that all these years later he and I would still be this close, and that his music was still affecting my artwork when I listened to it, and it's one of those relationships you never could have imagined.
Yeah, I always feel like album art is crazy because I mean, art is timeless, music is timeless, and it's just so awesome doing a cover like that thing is eternal, like that. When people listen to that album years from now, there's always going to be the artwork that pops up with it, and they're so like intertwined, and that's just like a really cool thing to have and be a part of, um, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you slapping a lot of hip hop when you're doing art? Like or are you kind of more into classical music, or what's kind of the vibe there?
Uh, I listened to KCSM, College of San Mateo Public Jazz Radio Station, has the largest jazz archive in the United States, and it's just like I contribute to all their fundraisers. Like, I'm just a big fan of that radio station. Uh, but other than that, yeah, I just listen to hip hop almost strictly. It's one of those things that, you know, when you're trying to draw stuff and not be loose or messy, hip hop is really good to get your adrenaline going, and kind of like part of why it fuels skateboarding. It's just like one of those forms of music where it makes your blood course, your adrenaline gets going, and you just get a little sharper. Which for me in drawing, it's good just to like, maybe not when I'm sketching ideas, but if I'm going to ink something and you got to not, I mean, you don't have a chance to fuck up. It's a good way to get my adrenaline pumping at this age and just get really engaged and just like not fuck up.
What other Bay Area artists do you kind of create to? Any Nicotina? Any like other Bay Area artists that really inspire you to
San
create?
Quinn, Messy Marv.
I'm familiar with all of them, but I'm old, you know what I mean? I have to go with the ones that hit me hardest when I first got here. And that would definitely be Dell, who I heard of first, obviously, and then Souls of Mischief. I've had a chance to meet a few of those dudes as I've gotten older. My favorite rapper from the Bay Area ever is Casual, from the Hieroglyphics. I just think that's like he ran for public office in Oakland. Like, this motherfucker is like a chief.
True
And
Yeah.
OG.
I'm a big fan of all Bay Area rappers just because it's a tough place to be a fucking rapper. It doesn't get a lot of attention. Like, it's hard to become an E40. It's
Yeah.
hard to become a Dell. It's hard to be like a Dan the Automator. Like some of these dudes from the Bay Area that are really like globally recognized, that's not an easy road. But I have to go with like that 90s Oakland sound is kind of something I can still put on and listen to when I draw, and just, that's my thing.
When I think of Dell, I always think of that Tony Hawk soundtrack, the video game. Dell was on there. That soundtrack was insane for the first Tony Hawk. Like it had a lot of the groups you're talking about all in there, and you just be skating. And Dell had that "You Better Brush Your Teeth" song. I forget the name of it, but like I always think back about that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, do you mess around with cannabis or anything that kind of like gets you more loose when you're doing art, do you look for something that's a little bit more organic?
Uh, I mean, I used to smoke a ton of weed. I had a brain aneurysm in 2015 and had to have surgery, and that led to epilepsy. And at that point, I had to quit smoking. I vaporize it daily, and I'm able to eat edibles and stuff like that. But I can't actually smoke anymore. I do a lot of work with marijuana brands. Like I said, some of my earliest, like big time collectors were guys in tech and guys in weed, because, from the early 2000s till now, those are two of the fastest growing, biggest financed businesses in the Bay Area that, like I said, they also were run by crazy people who spent their money really responsibly. So yeah, I am a fan of the cannabis movement in the Bay Area. As a matter of fact, in the 90s, I worked for Dennis Perone, uh, skating up and down Market Street, getting signatures to put it on the ballot to be voted on for medicinal use. Um, they paid 50 cents a signature, and I would literally just skate all over Civic Center Plaza and be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, or excuse me, sir, how do you feel about medical marijuana use in the state of California?" And like 95% of the people were like, "Fuck yeah, cool." And they'd sign this thing, and at the end of the day, I'd bring it back, and they paid 50 cents a signature, and they let you smoke a bunch of weed, but you couldn't leave with any because they were like being
Yeah.
federally watched.
Yeah.
But it's something I've always contributed to, and I definitely, 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 definitely think that's a humongous part of the experience in San Francisco and the Bay Area in the last 25 years. I mean, we're looking at a moment where like it's legal in New York, it's legal in a large number of states in the United States, and I'm sure positive that within the next 5 to 10 years, it's nationally going to be legal. And much like so many motherfucking things, the Bay Area isn't going to get the credit it deserves, but you know, this is the first state in the United States where it was medicinally legal and so on and so forth. Like the Bay Area, once again, had such a huge role to play in marijuana use in the United States. Uh, but yeah, definitely a fan, a supporter, and a guy who was out there hitting the pavement trying to get people to vote on it back when I was a kid.
You brought up your brain aneurysm. How did like something? How did you know that you had? I mean, obviously you go to the doctors, I'm sure. Did something happen? Like I was reading up on that and wanted to ask you, but I'm just curious. Like, how did that affect you and your ability to do art and so forth?
I was in a restaurant and I just kind of nodded out, and my wife at the time was just like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" Um, Went to the hospital. They did a bunch of brain scans, and they're like, "Holy shit, you have a big ass lump in your head. We have to operate right away."
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's that's uh that's wild. That's yeah, man, going on a lot of, as a firefighter, there's a lot of medical calls, and so we're going on those all the time. But, it's those are big events for sure. So,
I'm pretty fortunate, to be fair. I mean, that's the kind of thing they can figure out after you're dead. I was
yeah.
lucky that there was at least some sign to like check it out before it got too late. And unfortunately, the thing is really big and it moves a lot of stuff around in my brain, and has caused me to. I have epilepsy as a result of it, and have to take a bunch of like really weird, like heavy brain medication. But overall, I think with stuff like that, it's real easy to sit there and be like, "Oh, what the fuck." But I think I'm pretty lucky that I caught it at a time. I mean, it could have killed me. It could have made things really worse if they hadn't resolved it. So I'm fortunate I found it when I did, and I try not to bitch about it too much.
When you did your first piece of artwork after you recovered from it? Did that have like some pretty heavy meaning to you? Just kind of feeling lucky to be alive and being able to do it.
Uh, it's funny, man. Uh, I'm like kind of an angry guy, like I'm half Italian and just easily pissed off. And
You're talking to us, man.
the
We're
the doctors were like, yeah, you kind of knock out. He can't really get pissed off. Like circulation gets going, and blood starts pumping. Like you could burst this thing and die. So you know, quit smoking weed. My dad died right at the same time. Uh, and they're like, don't get pissed off about anything ever again. and
Wow.
then and then I got this incredible fucking opportunity right all at the same time. Uh, the San Francisco Arts Commission like hired me to do this project at City Hall. It was City Hall's 100th birthday, and they wanted me to draw 100 drawings in 100 days about City Hall.
oh my God.
And I was like, what? Like, I was like, okay, but I want an office. And they were like, you want an office? Like, people that work the City Hall forever, that you don't get an office. I was like, no, I don't need like a traditional office. I'll take like a storage closet, or like I don't care. I just want somewhere where if I'm going to draw 100 drawings, I want to be sitting in the building
In the
somewhere.
spot. Yeah.
And I also want a book deal because, no one goes to an art show and can remember 100 drawings. It's an enormous amount of stuff for me to do. And they displayed them all in City Hall. Like they on the ground floor, they put all the drawings up for people to look
So
at.
sick.
So it was like, I had kind of gone through this traumatic thing. My dad died, and then I had to draw a drawing a day for 100 days sitting at City Hall. And it was just, I don't know, I just felt kind of lucky. You know what I mean? Like I didn't die. Uh,
Got an office in City Hall.
got an office in City Hall. Yeah, like I felt like the city was kind of reaching out to me to be like, hang in there, buddy. Like, we appreciate you. And yeah, at the end of it, Mayor Ed Lee gave me my own motherfucking day, like for that project, specifically. And it was just one of those, like, I think sometimes in life, if you stay well intended and like, I don't know, put your best foot forward or whatever, I could have done a lot of shit after that and just like chilled out. My wife at the time was like, you might want to just like chill out and take some time off. Like I bought some like more comfortable furniture and shit. Like I got a cat. Like, so I just relax more often and not be so fucking stressed out. And I think the City Hall thing came just at the right moment to remind me, like, you just weren't designed to be like sitting around all the time, like just get back to work and be glad nothing worse happened.
Yeah, you might
You
be able
got
to
your
call
own
it.
fucking day?
You
I
got
mean, that's so sick.
Yeah, I think it was only supposed. I
an
think it was only.
Italian that can't get mad, dude. You got to call the
Yeah,
Guinness
right.
Book of World Records on that. They'll do a piece on that for sure.
But yeah, after the City Hall thing, a lot of my art was like, I did a show in Denver called Anger Management, and I like draw this stuff that was just kind of about like not being mad, I guess was kind of the theme. But yeah, no, I'm still mad all the time. That's impossible. They should have flicked some kind of switch in there if that's what they wanted me to do.
Dude, one of the things that was amazing. I read about how you mentioned in North Beach a lot of pain felt by the businesses, restaurants, bars, etc. And you auctioned off some artwork of yours that sold out pretty quick, and we're donating money to different businesses and things like that. Um, that can you kind of talk about that a little bit on like what gave you the idea for that? Obviously an amazing thing being able to give some support to folks who were really hit hard by the pandemic and the drop in global tourism.
Yeah, I live like right in the middle of the neighborhood. I live across the street from Washington Square Park, next to Tony's Pizza, and it was just like, like all these people that work in these bars and restaurants are kind of like my roommates. I live alone in a basement apartment with a cat. And so like everybody that lives around here is kind of like, not just I see these people every day, and just like all of a sudden everything just got shut the fuck off. They didn't know if they were going to go back to work or not. Like, and I suddenly didn't have any, walking around this neighborhood, it was like a ghost town, and I got really upset. And just because there were all these GoFundMe this and GoFundMe that, and like And it was getting real twisted. Like, you were hearing lots of shady stories about like places putting up GoFundMe's and not giving anybody any money and just stuff that I don't know if it was happening or not, but I got really upset. And I was just like, I hit up the gallery I work with and I was like, yo, I do editions of prints where it's 100 prints. This is frequent. And the prints are $100 each. Usually, if the gallery does all the sales and fulfillment, they take half. That's just how it works. The gallery was like, yo, fuck that. He's like, we won't take any money. My friend Ken Harmon that owns Hashimoto Gallery, he was like, look, he's like, we'll auction or we'll sell them and we'll send them out and we'll pay all the shipping and whatever. And he's like, I'll just hand you the money. So we put them up. They sold in like a couple of minutes. We made 10 grand. And the next day he handed me a check. I went and cashed it and broke it down into stacks and just literally went bar to restaurant to bar to like texting my neighbors to come out of their house. And I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to hand people cash directly because they don't know when they're going back to work. And all this GoFundMe shit, A, they're getting fucking taxed on it. B, it's like and I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, it was like very successful, but also sad as fuck, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird for some of the time back there. It's just weird seeing a bunch of vacancy spots, like you said, in the spot that was like the pinnacle,
Columbus,
It
yeah.
was like you could open up a shop selling nothing and be successful in North Beach, and great spots that are incredible shutting down like, hey, we can't do it.
Well, and straight up people bailing, you know what I mean? Like I had friends that, Ituto Kwa, that place that used to be on the corner of
Yep.
Broadway and Columbus forever.
Hmm.
Those kids used to be my upstairs neighbors and they were like hella generous, super nice dudes. That was it. They were just like, we're not going to fucking, yeah, it was already not great around here. Things that got
Yeah. The
pre-pandemic, tourism had almost dried up, like Europeans and Canadians who are the primary tourists in this area, they don't like to visit the United States when our politics are, fucked up. And I noticed it when George W. got reelected, and I noticed it really crazy during, you know, the the years that Trump was in office. It just fucking just disappeared.
Yeah, you
And
don't
I
go
don't
to
blame him. I wouldn't have wanted to come to this country either during that time. So things in North Beach were already crazy. A bunch of my favorite shit had already closed. And then you put this on top of it. So it was like things were already struggling. And then there was this pandemic, which everyone struggled. And it just to watch so much shit close in a neighborhood that when I was younger, especially when I was in college, bro, there was a fucking Gap had a store in North Beach. Like it was like, it was thriving to say the least. Like, so I think to go from all those years to being my age and watching it in a real position where I felt like heartbroken, and not just for the area, because that'll snap back, a new generation of young people will come in and open. It's already happening. But it was actually the like legs under the table. It was all the people that run these places. And especially like bartenders and servers, that there was no end in sight. Those restaurants and bars weren't paying those people while they were home. They didn't have any idea what was around the corner. So it was motivated primarily by that, you know.
it was cool seeing, on a positive note, the adaptations and the kind of like spirit of some places, when the outdoor dining started popping up and they're building right there, just trying to make stuff work. And there were some positives with that. And hopefully now, some of these businesses that weather that storm, they're this just deeper, in the spirit of kind of like the city and that like surviving some of the rugged times. And so hopefully, I mean, even though I don't see some of the changes leaving, everyone always goes like, when 9/11 happened, like, when are they going to get rid of the security checkpoints at the airport? Never. When it comes to disease and stuff, when's testing and going away in mass? I don't know, maybe never, because there's always going to be some. But seeing people survive and still do creative stuff and find a way, that's inspiring for sure.
Yeah, I just think, this was a terrible way to see so much good stuff in the city close. But
Hmm.
it's not just the pandemic, it's not just the last 2 years. That without the life's blood of tourism, San Francisco just, it's been crippled by it. And I'm not bitching and I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying it happened.
Dude,
This city needs tourism for it to pulse like it does. And without it, things got tricky. And then stick a pandemic on top of that. And again, the whole world's been affected by this shit. I'm just speaking locally. It really, 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 really clamped down on the real estate issues here. And to see so much stuff still boarded up and closed is sad. But I met this cool old dude in the hate who had his store for decades, and his shit was like, if this puts me out of business and I have to leave now, some young version of me back in the day will come here and start the next wave of that type of business. And I've had a lot of older neighbors and older San Franciscans lay that same kind of vibe on me. Like, there will be a next wave. It's just unfortunate what closed a lot of this most recent wave, and it's heartbreaking, to be honest.
yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So our family had a restaurant on Fisherman's Wharf, right there on Jefferson, Pompey's Grotto. I grew up working
I
the
remember
crab.
that spot.
Yeah, I grew up working the crab
We
stand,
both
and
cracked crab over there.
That's what's
yeah,
up.
Yeah, we were
yeah.
we were clicking, click, click, click.
That's sick.
Yeah, ate a lot of
So,
crab, drank a lot of
lot.
soda.
So, I mean, you talk about the wharf. I mean, it's like, bro, there used to be so many people walking in the wharf. I mean, there was the Bushman. That guy made $1 million
I
scaring
did a
people.
T-shirt about the Bushman back in the day. I'm a big fan,
Dude,
or
I was talking
was
to
a big
someone.
fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you can't you can't even do the Bushman anymore because San Francisco's like I think they tried to sue him or something. Like he
Oh yeah,
got
the
kicked.
Bushman would get destroyed today. It'd be like, no, this is unacceptable, and so
Somebody come up with
serious.
a virtual reality Bushman experience you can download on your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
That's fucking ridiculous. Hey, when was the last time you guys went to the wharf?
I was I recently went to SCOMA's because I'm getting married in a couple months, actually at St. Peter and Paul Church, and then we're doing the
Congratulations.
thanks, bud. We're doing the after party at the. I'm a member of the Italian Athletic Club,
Dude, I'll
but
sneak you in there, Jeremy. I'll see you're right by.
I
Just let
know
me
those
know.
guys.
We'll sneak
yeah,
you right through
I've
there,
tried
dude.
to I've tried to barter with them. Every time they ask me to do illustration, I'm like, you guys know my fucking deal. I won't take a dime, but I want a membership for life. And they're like,
that's so
so for a
sick.
while they were like, no, come on, dude. We don't give anybody. I was like, I'm not really gonna use it. It's not like I'm
Yeah,
gonna do
Yeah,
anything. I
you're
just
not gonna
want to
be
say
there.
I got a membership for life.
Yeah.
So they were like, nah, nah. And at some point they came back and they were like, all right, but you know, you gotta be
Limited facilities, limited facilities.
no, no, not even. They were like, you got to prove like you have to be. I don't know what it
oh,
is. You got to be at least 70%, 50% Italian. I don't know what it is. And I'm not. Like my mom's last name is Diagostino, but I'm like a fucking mutt. There's a million things in there. And I was like, no, I'm 100%. They're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I am 100%. And they're like, well, we gotta have some documentation. And I was like, no, it's all been lost in a flood. This is
no
Yeah.
all off the
way.
record, by the way. You have to edit this out.
All right, I
Yeah.
Gonna
will.
cut down my chances on them letting me in for a free membership for life.
I'll break their kneecaps. They'll let you in.
Nah, but you could at least suggest it. Be
I
like,
will.
he's 100%.
No, dude. Well, I know those guys well. My dad actually was on the board there for a while before. So there's a guy named Lou Panatti who kind of took
Yeah.
over there, and he really kind of like we left as members, and once he kind of took things over, he got things going in the right. They went from the red to the, positive, and it's become a lot better. But back in the day, man, it was a little fishy. There was some stuff that went down, which I'll edit out, so you don't have to worry.
We
But
gotta hit that. We gotta hit them up and go, hey, dude, this guy's great grandfather made the suit that Teddy Roosevelt was inaugurated in. Was it married?
My grandfather used to he always say he made the suit he was buried in and the suit he was married in.
Married and buried, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, between us, we'll
It
edit
just
this.
sounds badass. He was his
We'll
main tailor. He made all his shit, but I just say he was married and buried. I mean, it just sounds cool.
very similar ceremonies. We'll edit that out too, Mike, because
Yeah, rest in peace,
yeah,
President Roosevelt.
yeah.
hey, Jeremy. So before we let you go, Dom, do you have any other really important questions for Jeremy? We could fucking sit here all day long and talk to you, but
No, you know, the only thing, you know, any big projects on the horizon, anything that's really exciting that you know, you're looking to do or stuff you collabs you really would love to get involved in, anything on the radar
Uh,
that you
I've
can
got a,
speak of course, you know,
I've got a,
disclosures aside.
yeah. I've got a show coming up in New York in August that I'm going to work on all year that I'm really looking forward to. Um, you know, to be honest, man, I'm just kind of enjoying this moment in my life. It's a good time to be living here. I have a great job. I feel really fortunate to be as steady as I am with it. Um, this summer I was able to do something for the Giants, which was really fun. And then I did a big thing for the 49ers when they opened the Levi's Stadium. And right before COVID, I did a sick ass poster for the Warriors, and I'm not a sports fan at all. I'm not a
Damn.
hater. I just grew up skateboarding and didn't really play any other sports. So to be a guy who's from 3,000 miles away and have done something for the Giants, the 49ers, and the Warriors, but the Warriors thing got canceled because the game got canceled. It was a poster
Damn.
for a game that was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like late March. You know what I mean? So obviously they were done having games. And I wrote to people the other day and I was like, yo, what are you going to do with that? And you know, I normally won't bug somebody about it, but this thing is really dope. I was really proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, you know, unfortunately, we discontinued that whole poster campaign. Like, we'll keep it in mind, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa. So if there was anything like a dream project, I wish those dudes would fish that thing out of the garbage can and use it because it was dope. I was like, I
Mike,
don't even care. Like, it was a fundraiser too. It's supposed to raise money for like some youth organization or whatever. So I
add
would love
that
that to actually go down.
to Mike's list because Mike is in deep with the Warriors and the
I'm
Italian
not.
Athletic Club. So we're going membership Italian Athletic Club, and we're going to revive the Warriors poster. Those are one or both of those are going down for sure.
I had lunch randomly. What's the assistant coach's name? That guy, Chris. There's an assistant coach for the Warriors that I
Really,
had lunch.
really tall, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah, I know
from
what you're talking
here.
about. Yeah, I know you're talking
Uh,
about.
I just happened to have lunch with him on his birthday in a restaurant where we were the only people there.
Chris
And
DeMarco?
yeah.
Yeah, I know him well.
He's an investor in one of my friend's restaurants, and we just happened to be there on the dude's birthday, which was really random. And embarrassingly, I didn't know who the fuck he was because I don't really follow, and he didn't know who the fuck I was. But we got along real good, and my buddy put it in his ear too, and was like, "Yo, tell them to use this fucking thing because it's dope." And I mean, at this point, it exists. I just hate to see it go to waste, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to check off my Bay Area trifecta sports thing because I don't know, for a guy that just wanted to draw skateboard graphics, it's super good to be able to draw for the fucking 49ers and the Giants and now maybe the Warriors.
We've had some you know, we had the CEO of Rakuten on here, which is a Bay company who
Yeah.
sponsors the Warriors. Like we really try to connect people from the podcast. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'll make it come true, but I'll certainly, you know, try my best to connect some dots for you. But before we let you go, speaking of things that we're proud of, we do a trivia round, and the winner gets this bridge to bridge belt,
Sick.
Yeah.
which I'll come if you win this. I doubt you will because the questions are so hard.
Yeah, I'm not that smart, but I'll do my fucking best. That
But
belt looks tight.
yeah, no, the belt is sick. We're gonna come get a pic with you with it anyways, just because it's hella Frisco and we just love San Francisco. But I'll let Dom kind of take it from here and ask the questions. He's the guru.
All right, here
Yeah.
we go.
So this is tough, but we did. I mean, I'll tell you what. We've had a lot of people on the show, and kind of your portfolio, your street cred in North Beach specifically is, you know, it's enough for that. You're a native. So we tailored this, and it's going to get progressively more difficult, and it's very hard. So we got 4 questions, and you know, these accelerate. So we'll start off with an either or question. I need you to name one Muni line that runs through North Beach or one infamous prisoner out of Alcatraz. One of those gets you to the next round.
30 Stockton and Al Capone.
Done, dude.
Dang.
Double. Okay, that
Wait, hold
earns
on.
you
But
a hint. That
before you
earns you a
go,
lifeline.
hold on. Before he goes to the next one, can you name the other lines that run through North Beach?
No.
All right, there's
All you need
39.
there's
Well,
only the
there's
30
like the
Stockton and there's everyone else.
No, no,
15
no.
Union. Like you know, when I was in college, I took the bus to get over here. but that's the only bus I ever took. 45 Union's the one that runs in front of my house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't take the bus much.
There's 45, there's the 30, there's the 39, which kind of runs around Coy
Yeah,
Tower.
yeah.
The 15 used to run through from the wharf all the way like
Out to Bayview.
yep, to
Yeah.
Bayview. And there's a few more, but yeah, it's sick.
Okay, so you're moving on. You got out of the first round, and now things are starting to get serious.
All right.
This brewery originally burned down in 1906 in the earthquakes. It's now on Potrero Hill and one of the last remaining breweries to produce California common beer.
Anchor Steam. I'm an ambassador for the brand, god damn it.
Gang.
Boom.
And the
dude.
original one was in Pack Heights. It was on
Dude.
Pacific.
Oh, that's sick. I didn't
You're
know
cruising
that.
through, dude. You got through second round. Just so
I'm
you
not very
know,
smart either. I got my fingers crossed this doesn't get way harder.
and the current belt holder is Gary Payton II. So he is the current the champion right now. The bridge to bridge champ is Gary Payton II. So you'd be dethroning an up and coming star for the Warriors, which kind of also checks a little bit of box action. So
Wouldn't
let's.
want to do that. I would let him have it if they just used my artwork.
I don't think his season's riding on it, but okay.
Let's hope not.
SF MoMA has on display a mural from this artist, which was his last mural painted in the United States.
Diego Rivera, and it's a tragedy. They took it out of a fucking city college wall and transported it to the MoMA so people could pay to look at it. Dear SF MoMA, that was whack.
Yeah, I remember I saw it at City College, and it was pretty.
So did I.
It was
and I
pretty.
didn't have to pay any money to go in and look at it. That's
Yep.
goofy as hell. Yeah, that thing could have been destroyed moving that across town. Shame on you, MoMA.
Yep.
I'm serious. That's whack.
I just love it.
Diego's man. He had a giant mural at my school in a gallery called the Diego Rivera Gallery. And when you go to the SFAI, it's like before you graduate, they let you have a show in there. And it's a big deal. My first art show ever. I hung next to Diego Rivera. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah.
Wait,
fucking tear someone's mural out and move it. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's whack. Dom, you should have thought of a better fucking question, dude. What's wrong?
It's still a good question. It was a bad act,
it's
but
a great question. Most people probably wouldn't know that.
They wouldn't know that.
They did not. That was not a huge headline that they were tearing it out of City College.
I didn't even know that. But I have one question before you go to the last question. Who did the mural at Coy Tower?
There's a whole group of people. It was the WPA artist group. It's a bunch of people.
I like that one.
Zach Heim is like the main dude. I can't remember his first name. I did a residency at Coy Tower in 2017 where there's an apartment inside there where a guy used to live, like a caretaker, up until the 90s, I heard. And it's like an apartment that goes like, and there's like a kitchen. And now they use it as like an office for the employees. But I got this opportunity to use it as my studio for like a couple of months. And I created a bunch of prints and t-shirts that they could sell down in the gift shop just to kind of like get people to go there because it's not, it wasn't doing great. But yeah, it was fucking murals in there are so crazy. And there's some murals that aren't open to the public anymore because people were vandalizing them. Like up near the apartment, there's this crazy mural that you can only see if you go on the tours. So to anybody watching this that's a big fan of like San Francisco public mural art, especially from the 30s, take the Coy Tower tour because you get to see a bunch of art that's not on public display.
And another sick thing to know about Coy Tower is that the statue that's up there of Christopher Columbus was not supposed to be put up there. It was supposed to be in Washington Square Park. In Washington Square Park, there's a group of firemen, and that was supposed to be put up at Coy Tower because Coy Tower is a
giant fire hose.
Yeah, it's a giant and just a dedication. Isn't that right?
Coincidental. It's not supposed to look like a fire hose. It's a myth. It does, but it's not. The design was different. It was
just supposed to be a monument.
Yeah. It was designed by Albert Brown, the same dude that did City Hall and the Art Institute and the Ferry Building. It's supposed to they cut the budget, and so the plans changed, and it doesn't look like what was originally designed. But the likeness to a fire hose is purely coincidental, and I don't say that to be offensive to the firefighters at all.
None taken.
I know the historian, this guy Rory O'Connor, who gives the tours at Coy Tower, and that's like straight from his mouth.
So wait, what I just said is complete bullshit.
It's a myth.
Okay.
It's not designed to look like a fire hose. It is a tribute to Lily Coit, who was way down with the firefighters, and may or may not be a tribute to the firefighters as well. But people always say that it's like a there's a guy that does walking tours in this neighborhood that always says it kind of dirty because like they say Lily had a thing for the firefighters, and he always tries to turn it into a phallic symbol and like all this shit that is definitely not true. And I'm not saying that like I made it up. I got it from the guy who wrote a book about Coit Tower. So don't beat me up. Don't make the firefighters mad with that one. But
No,
that's
no,
what I was
that's
told. It looks like that because the budget from what it was supposed to look like got cut. Coit Tower, they didn't want that up there. That was like an artist community on Telegraph Hill, and like all those people protested it when they went to build it. And this one lady, I don't remember her name, but she owned a cafe for artists up there. She shot at it and got arrested for like putting bullet holes while they were building it.
So sick.
damn.
I'm so glad it's there because I think it's such a cool piece of San Francisco.
I think it's
Yeah.
dope, but all the like those kind of landmarks, it's like a generational thing, like I heard when they built the Transamerica Pyramid in the 70s, people hated it. It stood for Alioto, and like all these people protested it and didn't want it. But then that became the kind of thing that by a generation after is like people get tattoos of that shit.
Right.
Sutro, I heard the same thing. Like people protested that and didn't want it there. And Coit Tower, I've heard the same. So, there's this weird tradition of these things getting built and being hated on by the people that were alive when, but the generation after use it
Loves
as a
it.
symbol of the city. And yeah, it's interesting how like maybe the landmark kind of represents the future. And you
Mhm.
like, you're like, as an older resident, you're like, nah, fuck those guys. Like how people now hate on the fucking Salesforce building.
Right.
Like
The,
like people who live here now, fuck that big
the
dildo,
giant piece.
whatever they call it. But
Yeah.
it's like, I bet you anything in another 10 years, motherfuckers are going to have tattoos of the Salesforce building. And old people like us are going to be like, you stupid fuck, that thing's a dildo.
Yeah. The building that defied, gravity, and
Tilting, whatever.
they'll add a new
Just
myth to it or something.
hating the landmark that came up while you were here, because it reminds you that you're getting surpassed by the younger generation, maybe.
For sure.
Just
That's
the
heavy.
final question.
Yeah, dude. So you're at the final question, and this is made very difficult, but
Good.
let's give it a shot. This is a restaurant in North Beach. That's all you get. No, I'm just joking. We got more. We got more than that. Okay, a restaurant in North Beach. It shares the name with a former bar on Columbus, which was a very old school neighborhood bar, old school Italian bar. Now a restaurant owned by SF legend Frankie Balistreri. And you do get a hint because you got the Muni and the Alcatraz. So the hint is it's a seafood restaurant, and name was formerly a bar on Columbus.
Portofino.
Hey.
Boom! New champion. Gary Payton II, Young
Frankie-
Glove is
Frankie
D.
is the man, and his brother Vince and I are all good friends. And it is named after his father's social club, which was unfortunately raided at some point in the 90s.
Yep.
Several gentlemen were wrongly put in fucking cuffs. Yeah, Portofino is the spot. As a matter of fact, I was just celebrating the success of Frankie this afternoon. He is the fucking greatest neighbor and a real symbol of this neighborhood. And almost like I see Frankie. Frankie's kind of like the logo of North Beach, like if
Yeah.
like Mickey Mouse is to Disneyland, is Frankie to fucking North Beach, I feel like, right?
You know that mural on the building on Broadway Street in Columbus? He's on the side of that. He's one of the fishermen next to the boat with the cigarette in his mouth.
Shut the fuck up, really?
Yep,
Like where
that's
they have
him.
all the light up books hanging?
Yep, that's him, dude. So
I gotta
We-
look at that more carefully. I didn't know that.
We
dude,
spent a lot of time, baby. We were babysat in Portofino. Our dad, Gino. You may have met him in North Beach, Gino. He's like a fixture in North Beach, but we spent a lot of time in Portofino, just kind of like playing with blocks. We're playing Pedro, stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the guys I've met from that whole neck of the woods are all really super, super good to me. And like, I lived over here a really long time before I got to Frankie. I met, and Mario I met right when I moved over here. But a lot of those other dudes and a lot of the scene at Gino and Carlos, I've gotten to know a little bit older. But yeah, I'm sure I've seen your dad around. I'm sure I would recognize him, and probably vice versa. Just
100%, dude. This
I've
guy,
lived here and worked from here and worked out of my apartment or a studio near here for the better part of the last 2 decades.
he was a garbage man for 30. You know, he fits the North Beach bill. Garbage man
Dude,
for 30 years, Teamster. You know the deal
what's so
I
funny,
bet I recognize this guy.
for
yeah,
sure.
we grew up we grew up going to Porto Empedocle, the town that he's from in Sicily, and the town square is gossip central. That's one of the favorite pastimes is gossip, and that's one of the things that's still interesting in North Beach. You go to Cafe Greco or some, and they're talking. You know, if you overhear a conversation, they're always tell you hear what happened to so and so. I can't believe this guy. He's out for life. You know, they love the controversy. Like Italians love controversy, as you know, and that's still alive and well in North Beach. At
Definitely.
sitting around some tables, you can always get a whiff of that.
I often imagine, like the unfortunate thing for me living here, honestly, is my days are numbered. I think like my family's from 3,000 miles from here. Like I don't make a lot of money at this job, and like I often joke with people that this job never made me rich, but it gave me a slice of San Francisco you couldn't pay for. Like I've had a very rich life here, but I think unfortunately I can't imagine I'm going to be able to afford to grow old in this neighborhood. My landlord and his family are wicked good to me, but that doesn't mean you get to retire off it. But I
Right.
often joke that if I do grow old and die here, I will definitely take the seats of the old grumpy Italians that sat there before me and maintain their tradition of like eating crusty pastries and drinking grumpy espressos and like talking bullshit about people, because it's something even from the time I was in college, long before I ever visited Italy. Uh, it just, I don't know, it's a very romantic part of this neighborhood. It's something that just, I don't know. As I'm getting older and I'm watching a lot of those old timers age out, some who I know and some who I didn't. A lot of the cops that I was good friends with that are retiring now, and like, you know, it's getting to a point where I can see my age, and I'm like, oh fuck, like I'm not too far off from being the oldest guy in this cafe or being the oldest guy in this bar.
You're good,
And
man. You're still good.
I would say that if I had one San Francisco wish, I take back the Warriors thing, is that somehow I'm able to be able to afford to grow old and die here, because I don't want to move out of here. I want to leave North Beach through the chimney of the Green Street Mortuary. You know what I mean? So if any of these guys, they got an apartment in the back corner, they got a cottage in their backyard, they want to sell me or whatever, I'm down for this place. Like I do an awful lot to make this neighborhood celebrated by people all over the world, and it's my home and somewhere like I said, my people are from 3,000 miles away. I worked really hard for guys like you to be like, hey, we like that you like this neighborhood. Like it was 20 years of effort trying to celebrate this place, and right now is a time where we need everybody else's help to celebrate it.
For sure, for sure.
Dude, that was so sick. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for
My
fucking
pleasure. I
coming
can't
on this.
believe, I feel like you're fucking with me a little bit on those trivia questions. I got all
No.
No,
of them. And the last one, I feel like you knew I knew that guy.
Well, you know what? We want, first of all, we want you to win because, and this is going to be cut too, but we want to get this belt to you. We could put it on your shoulder. We'll play some rock music and, we'll make a cool video of it.
All right.
no.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, hey, I'll tell you. Look, looking back, I mean, we like weaving in questions that also have to do with your career, and so um, the more deeply rooted you are in SF, the easier the questions are. A lot of these questions that other people will ask, and they're like, I have no clue about any of that stuff, and that's kind of something too with those that have like really loved San Francisco, love the history of it, and there's some folks that are like, I don't really know shit about this place. But
Plus,
those ones, I mean,
we,
hey, the Portofino one's tough.
we make this podcast for La Rocca's attendants, people who go to La Rocca's and Gino's and Carlos. So, that's kind of the people who like this
I gotta
podcast.
say, I never went in that spot.
To La
Not
Rocca's,
once.
it's
Yeah, when I
probably,
was in college, I used to wait for the bus in front of there every day. And I don't know what the deal is. I can't say I've ever walked in there to have, not disrespectfully.
no, yeah.
Uh, I don't know why. It may just be like a little bit far from my place or going towards the wharf, or I don't know what the fuck the deal is, but yeah.
It's the same as Gino and Carlos, to be 100%
Same dude.
honest. Yeah, same
There,
fucking.
there's characters in there, and then what's his name, the boxer who's always in there.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Pat
yeah.
Lawler. Pat
Pat
Lawler.
Lawler's always in there.
I'm a fan. He's had
Yeah,
a tough couple of years, but I'm a fan.
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
Crazy.
That
We'll
was
have next time we're in town, we'll go there and grab a coffee or something, you know,
all right.
and
Anytime.
We'll take you to Portofino's and we'll give you the royal treatment, the real royal treatment.
I tell you, I'm about to open a gallery directly across the street from Frankie, and he was joking with me the other day. We're gonna get like a zip line or like a some kind of pulley system where we can shoot food back and forth across the street.
Oh,
yeah, dude.
dude.
Hey, so also one of the things for the episode that we can weave in, where's the best place to get your artwork for those that are interested in getting prints and all that stuff? What's the best outlet?
I have a clothing store on Fillmore that's been there for 22 years called Upper Playground
Oh,
that I'm like
sick.
part owner of. You can buy my T-shirts and things like that there. Prints are available from a place called the Haight Street Art Center on Haight between Laguna and Buchanan. And I have a big statue, a big bronze statue on Haight right out in front of it. And then original artwork and like paintings and drawings are available from this place called the Hashimoto Gallery, which is on Sutter, in like Tender Knob, more or less.
And your
So yeah,
website, right?
what's up?
Your website?
I don't really sell stuff like that directly. I like to work with entities that help me, and I really don't like to pack and ship stuff. So yeah, original art from Hashimoto, prints from the Haight Street Art Center, and T-shirts, sweatshirts, and shit like that from Upper Playground. But I do have prints available at the Coit Tower gift shop, just because I like to have stuff where you got to hike up to get it.
Very cool, man. We'll definitely check those out. And dude, can't thank you enough. You obviously, have altered the culture and history of San Francisco for the better. So for that and for what our show is about, thank you for that. And thanks for coming on the show.
Well, fellas, that's a cool thing to say, Dom. I appreciate that. You don't get to pick where you're born. It's like, it's been a long struggle for me to be here. So whenever dudes that are born and raised here acknowledge the effort I'm making, it means a lot. It feels good. Thanks a lot.
Jay Fish, thanks so much.